I'm making a video recapping the video about redirecting HTTP requests to HTTPS requests. And also, I'll relate this to how underdog.zone appears to redirect to buscompanyx.com. While I was looking for the previous video so I could recap it, I found some other videos, and this is one of them. It states the fact that etc apache2 apache2.conf is the main configuration file for Apache, and all the other sites enabled and all these other small ini files that we enable or disable, they basically append to this main configuration file for Apache. Okay, one of the things that I've rediscovered is there's two types of Apache virtual hosting. There's name-based virtual hosting and IP-based virtual hosting. The one that I'm using is IP-based virtual hosting. And apparently that's the type of hosting that I had to use because I'm using an SSL certificate. And there can only be one SSL per IP address. So once I decided to use IP-based, that ended up with me having only one virtual host file, since my server has only one IP address. Okay, here's the port 80.conf, which I mentioned earlier. Remember, there's only two enabled virtual host configuration files that are enabled, in sites enabled. So from what I can understand, because I'm just trying to refigure this out, is that I have one enabled virtual host, port 80.conf, for any requests which come into port 80. And I have another one. The other one is for port 443, which is the SSL port. So when Apache receives the request on port 443, then it goes to the configuration file. Let me exit so we can see the names of the configuration files. Here's the port 80 conf. The other one is buscompa conf. So let me do nano buscompa conf. That one responds to requests which are made at port 443, and the IP address is specified also. Okay, so let me get out and see if the other one specified an IP address. Okay, the other one basically has an asterisk which it catches any IP address, but the server only has one IP address. So that's what I figured out so far. I'll add more to this as I figure out more things. And as you can see by looking at this file, here's the redirection that is occurring. So if the user requests the regular buscompanyx.com without the S, Apache will receive that request and utilize this file called port80.conf. However, when that happens, Apache will tell the user's browser to redirect to http with an S buscompanyx.com. I'm going to modify this file. Let me add a line here called server alias, and I will put in underdog.zone. And this redirect directive lists the root of the web server as something to look for before it does the redirection. So if a request is received by the server which is not for the root directory, it may not do the redirection. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. However, once it does the redirection, this is the URL that it gets redirected to. And I'm going to keep it as buscompanyx.com rather than underdog.zone, because if it redirects to underdog.zone with an S in the HTTPS, then the user's browser will complain that the certificate is for a different domain than the actual domain which the server is returning. So that's why I'm going to keep it this way. Now, the stuff that I just said is coming from looking at this file and recollecting what happened. There may be more that I learn as I view more of my old videos. While reviewing the videos, I discovered what this if module mod ssl.c really means. It means that if the mod SSL is enabled in Apache, then read the configuration within this tag. So basically, if I disable the SSL module, then the only configuration that'll be read is the one for port 80. Let's take a look at it. Which basically says if you get a request on any IP and the port is 80, then the server name is this. But then it would try to redirect to HTTPS. So I'm not sure really what would happen. Anyways, I'm going to talk a little bit about log files. In the var log directory, we have general logs and we have directories for specific applications like Apache and MySQL, and those contain their log files. So what can we find in the general var log directory? Here's an important one, auth.log, and as you can see, it was last updated August 19th, and today is August 19th. So what's that one for?
Contains system authorization information, including user logins and authentication mechanism that were used.
Here's another one, the boot log. And as you can see on the left, we have one.
Contains information that are logged when the system boots.
dpackage.log. That one
contains information that are logged when a package is installed or moved using dpkg command.
Here's a good one. It's called last log.
Displays the recent login information for all the users. This is not an ASCII file. You should use last log command to view the content of this file.
And then there's this one.
Mail.log contains the log information from the mail server that is running on the system. For example, send mail logs information about all the sent items to this file.
From the timestamp, it looks like mysql.log is the one that's being used by MySQL on the system. So apparently the one in the directory called MySQL may not be the one where the log data is stored for MySQL. BTM.
BTMP. This file contains information about failed login at ton. Use the last command to view the BTMP file. For example,
I don't run cron on my server, but
cron. Whenever cron daemon or anacron starts a cron job, it logs the information about the cron job in this file.
WTMP is one of the log files I have on my system, and it
contains login records. Using WTMP, you can find out who is logged into the system. Who command uses this file to display the information.
And then there's this one, fail log.
Contains user failed login at ton. Use fail log command to display the content of this file.
Okay, this statement here is revealing. You know, besides the file called mail.log in var log, the directory var log mail actually contains other mail related log files. So an application can have a log file in var log and also have a directory which contains further log files for that same application. I am giving credit to the Geek Stuff website. I have a phperrors.log also, but that one doesn't look like it's being used, although I haven't run PHP on this computer for a while, on the production server. We also have one for XM4, a directory that is, and we have one for apt, one for dist upgrade, and one for apache2. I'm going to go into one or two of those just to see what's actually being used. Apparently, apache2 directory is being used heavily, and I'm going to read off the names of the files being used. There's buscompa access log, there's buscompa error log, and there is error log. Other vhosts access log, that one's being used. PHP errors log and PHP and underdog access log. And there's underdog error log. I wonder why it's not just using buscompa error log and buscompa access log. So somehow the name underdog became important to the logging mechanism, although I don't have a separate vhost for underdog. It's the same vhost configuration file. So apparently, since it's an alias for buscompa, the word underdog is being used when the user uses the word underdog to access the server. The XM4 directory is also being used. Its log file is called mainlog, and there's one called panic log. I'm going to look at the directory called mysql here. That one looks like it's being used. As of yesterday, there was a backup. So apparently it got so full that it had to back it up. That was the error log for MySQL. And MySQL slow is also being used a lot. There's one called MySQL error, and it looks like it's being used, but it's not really being backed up though. And that's it for my review of the log files.